Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new episode of World Panorama, the only show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global news. I'm Sana Khan. Before we get you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. 16th NAM Summit ends in Tehran. Backs right to peaceful nuclear energy. World Panorama gets you a closer look. Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney accepts nomination, says now is the time to restore the promise of America. Angela Merkel visits Beijing for talks aimed at boosting trade and allaying Chinese fears about Europe's heavy government debts. And Venice International Film Festival jolts into action with Meera Nair's film The Reluctant Fundamentalist. And straight to the story in focus this week, whether or not the 16th summit of the non-aligned movement in Tehran from August 26th to the 31st was a setback for the US, which led efforts to isolate Iran. The fact is that it took place at a crucial point in time for international relations that are characterized by a tug-of-war between Iran and major Western countries, as well as the continuing civil war in Syria. Now, it was not surprising, therefore, that UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, whose decision to attend the NAM meeting was criticized at the US State Department media briefing earlier on, stressed the importance of NAM, but did not shy of giving the Iranian government a bit of his mind, talking about Victoria Nuland. Now, over the next few minutes, we will be discussing the major takeaways from the NAM summit with respect to Iran's nuclear program. And joining me in the studio is senior journalist Ms. Indrani Bakchi. She was there in Tehran and witnessed the entire summit before her. Now, welcome to the show, first of all, ma'am. Before that, why don't we have a look at this report?
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei held talks with world leaders on the sidelines of the Non-Aligned Movement Summit on Friday. A day earlier, he opened the two-day summit with a speech railing against the United States, Israel and the UN Security Council, which are at the forefront of the pressure directed at his country.
I repeat that the Islamic Republic of Iran is not developing capabilities for nuclear weapons, but also Iran will not overlook the rights of its people and their need for access to peaceful nuclear energy.
This at a time when Iran was under diplomatic pressure after a UN watchdog report said it had expanded its nuclear program and was hampering inspections.
We are closely studying the details of the report, but broadly speaking, it is not surprising that Iran is continuing to violate its obligations. As the report illustrates, we are in a position to closely observe Iran's program and to detect any effort by Iran to begin production of weapons-grade uranium.
United Nations Chief Ban Ki-moon used his speech in Tehran to criticize the host for denying the existence of the Holocaust and for hostile rhetoric towards Israel.
I strongly reject threats by any member states to destroy another, or outrageous attempts to deny historical facts such as the Holocaust. Claiming that another UN member state, Israel, does not have the right to exist, or describing it in racist terms, is not only utterly wrong, but undermines the very principles we have all pledged to uphold.
Iran's big NAM splash intended to send a message to the West that Iran is yet to be isolated from the rest of the world. About 30 heads of state attended the summit, apart from high-level membership from all 120 members of the movement.
Let's go straight across to our guest, Ms. Bakchi. Now, there are a number of statements made at the NAM meeting. It's impossible to compile all of them into a short report. But let me ask you, the overview of the summit. All along, the Western media had made concerted efforts to downplay its importance. What's your idea?
Well, NAM is important for India, certainly, because in a way, NAM is our baby. India is one of the founder members of NAM, if you remember.
Right.
And NAM today, well after the Cold War is over, if you remember, NAM is a child of the Cold War, and well after the Cold War is over, NAM continues to retain its relevance with 120 members. They added 2 new members last year, which was Fiji and Azerbaijan. it clearly has a relevance for a lot of developing countries. The developing world continue to hold NAM as, let's say, special. They may not vote with NAM. NAM is not a voting bloc in the UN, but NAM holds a special place for everybody, as it does for India.
Right. Now, talking about Iran specifically, now that's what we are discussing. You were there at the summit. What idea did you get? Did you feel that Iran still is isolated even after the presence of so many nations there at the summit?
I think we have to separate Iran's problems, which stem from two issues. One is its nuclear ambitions. Two is its role in the war in Syria. We have to separate that from the NAM summit. And I think Iran wanted to bring them together because Iran wanted to show that the presence of other world leaders at the NAM summit was a sort of endorsement of Iran. I think a lot of others did not see it that way. I think a lot of others saw this as NAM, which is a multilateral organization, and not as an endorsement of Iran. The location of the summit was incidental, but the location of the summit is exactly what is driving, as you said, world attention to Iran.
Also, you know, there was something creative that happened at the summit, the showcasing of those 3 bullet-ridden cars, you know, the assassination of those 3 Iranian nuclear scientists. What do you think about that move? What was Iran really aiming to do over here?
Well, it's the same that Iran aimed throughout the summit, which was Iran did less on NAM and more on Iran. So it was Iran's problems, the nuclear issue, with which this particular installation art was sort of linked. It was bizarre. It was, I think it was unfortunate because it brought a bilateral issue. It brought a national issue as part of a multilateral forum. Iran also had an exhibition within the summit which said Iran as a victim of terror. Which is all about Iran. The thing is, you know, we've in India we have held summits, world summits. We have been victims of terror for a long time. No
one really goes.
We don't showcase
it,
our victims.
But did it have really any impact on the diplomats who were there? You know, looking at those cars and the way Iran was trying to call international attention.
I don't think anybody found it tasteful, shall we say. It was fairly distasteful to see bullet-ridden cars and with posters of the scientists, the dead scientists, their children. It's very unfortunate what happened to the scientists, but it's part of Iran's national problems and national issues on the nuclear ambitions. No country, certainly not India. India does not agree or does not endorse Iran's nuclear ambitions at all.
All right. Also, you know, at the time when the summit was going on, you had this UN watchdog report which said that Iran had expanded its nuclear program and was hampering inspections as well. Do you think this UN watchdog report, if at all, impacted the summit in any way? What was the mood around over there, you know, when reports came out?
As I said, people, they made a concerted effort to separate Iranian national issues from multilateral forum. I think Iran tried hard to bring it into the multilateral forum, and if you see the speech by the supreme leader, even by the president Ahmadinejad, there is a very strong attempt to bring their national issues into the multilateral forum, but I think there was significant pushback.
Also, you know, did the NAM summit in any way help to, you know, decrease the impact of the economic sanctions imposed by the European Union and the US? Did that happen?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
As I said, that has to do with the Iranian nuclear ambitions and the fact that Iran has an obligation for transparency to restore confidence with the IAEA, which according to everybody else, it has not been doing. Hence the sanctions by the US and the EU. I don't think that had anything to do with either the NAM summit or otherwise those sanctions continue.
All right, Ms. Indrani Bagchi, that's all the time we have for. Thanks so much for joining me this week and sharing your valuable inputs from the NAM Summit that you attended. With that, we'll take a very short break, but after that, World Panorama pays a special tribute to the man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Stay tuned. You're watching World Panorama. As violence spreads to almost every corner of Syria, there is no longer any doubt that the country is engulfed in an all-out war. In August alone, more than 3,000 Syrians were reportedly killed. Far from the beginning of the end, the Syrian struggle will most likely be a long, drawn-out conflict. No one knows how long it will last and what will be the consequences for the war-torn country and its neighbors.
The Syrian delegation stormed out of summit in Iran during a speech from the new Egyptian president that was highly critical of the Syrian regime.
We all have to announce our full solidarity with the struggle of those seeking freedom and justice in Syria and translate this sympathy into a clear political vision that supports a peaceful transition to a democratic system.
Developing countries gathered in Tehran for the non-aligned summit to discuss a range of matters, including the Syrian conflict. India's Prime Minister Manmohan Singh called for more action on Syria as he spoke at the summit in Tehran on Thursday.
Our movement should take a stand on the issue in keeping with universally accepted principles. We should urge all parties to recommit themselves to resolving the crisis peacefully through a Syrian-led, inclusive political process that can meet the legitimate aspirations of all Syrian citizens.
Meanwhile, earlier this week, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, speaking publicly for the first time since the bomb in Damascus killed 4 of his top military advisors, said that his forces are winning Syria's civil war and that foreign governments are engaged in a conspiracy to destroy Syria.
I can, however, cut short all the explanations with one sentence, and that is that we are moving forward. I believe that talk about a buffer zone is not practical, even for those countries which are playing a hostile role against Syria. Despite the many mistakes that are in existence, there are strong ties between the policies of these nations and the beliefs of these people.
The interview came as the number of refugees fleeing Syria has risen dramatically in recent days as the Syrian Air Force has taken on a significant role in the fighting. Despite the increase in violence, however, Assad denied his government had lost control of any part of the country.
Lifted by a show of Republican unity that once seemed so distant, Mitt Romney plunged into the presidential campaign's final 67 days, focused more than ever on jobs and the economy, and depicting President Barack Obama as a well-meaning but inept man who must be replaced. Here's a wrap-up of the Republican convention in Florida.
In a precisely planned climax to the Republican National Convention, Mitt Romney accepted his party's presidential nomination and promised restore America by creating jobs and fulfilling the hope that he claims President Obama failed to deliver on.
To the majority of Americans who now believe that the future will not be better than the past, I can guarantee you this: if Barack Obama is re-elected, you'll be right.
The multi-millionaire businessman stressed his success in the private sector.
If I'm elected President of these United States, I will work with all my energy and soul to restore that America, to lift our eyes to a better future. That future is our destiny. That future is out there. It is waiting for us. Our children deserve it. Our nation depends on it. The peace and freedom of the world require it. And with your help, we will deliver it. Let us begin that future for America tonight.
There was also an appeal to women voters. While Romney and Obama are running neck-and-neck nationally, polls show women much more likely to vote for Obama. Hollywood icon Clint Eastwood brought his star power and trademark gravelly voice to the stage of the Convention Hall in Tampa on Thursday. So the 2012 election seems to be largely about the economy, and voters will have to decide whether life under Obama is better or worse. Romney's job is to provide a credible alternative and crucially not to give the voters any cause to fall back on Obama as the least worst option. The question is, has Romney been able to accomplish that task?
Neil Armstrong, the American astronaut, died at the age of 82. He cemented a unique place in the history of mankind by becoming the first person to walk on the moon. Though his personal achievement was a product of the Cold War's bitter technological and political rivalry, the success of his mission proved a transcendent movement that captured the imagination of the entire planet. Here's a small tribute to one of the greatest achievers ever. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong's iconic words beamed to millions around the world.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So we, the Apollo 11 crew, are enormously appreciative of being asked to receive this Langley Medal. And we do so on behalf of all the men and women of the Apollo program.
Armstrong was the commander of the first moon mission and took his first steps on the lunar surface. As millions around the world watched on television, Armstrong spoke the famous words.
Great explorer, great adventurer, courageous, brave man.
Well, I remember him as a great astronaut. I remember growing up as a child watching him, fly into space, and really enjoyed it. I was in awe at the time. It fascinated me so much.
I think he's a pioneer. That's for sure. He's done a great job. I just hope they continue, the space mission.
US President Barack Obama lamented the death of Armstrong, calling him a man among the greatest of American heroes, not just of his time, but of all time.
Very rarely do I have such an extraordinary pleasure as I have today to welcome three iconic figures, three genuine American heroes. To have Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin here beside me is just wonderful.
The Apollo 11 mission was Armstrong's last space flight. The following year, he was appointed NASA's Deputy Associate Administrator for Aeronautics in the Office of Advanced Research and Technology. He left NASA a year later to become a professor of engineering at the University of Cincinnati. Armstrong lived in the Cincinnati area with his wife, Carol. Now moving on, England captain Andrew Strauss retires from professional cricket. That and more sports news after this short break. Thanks for staying with us. Time now to take a look at some of the other international news in a quick wrap. Here's Globe Watch.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel visited Beijing for meetings with Chinese officials in order to shore up support for the struggling euro. Merkel held bilateral meetings with Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao and attended a ceremony in the Great Hall of the People. Europe is China's largest trade partner, and its debt problems have dented demand for Chinese exports, dragging China into its worst downturn in 3 years. Australia suffered its worst combat losses since the Vietnam War when 5 troops were killed in Afghanistan. Officials from the Australian Defence Force and the NATO-led coalition said 3 Australians had been killed in southern Afghanistan on Wednesday by an Afghan wearing a soldier's uniform, bringing to 45 the number of NATO-led coalition troops killed in rogue shootings this year. Tropical storm Isaac is expected to weaken further as it heads north on Thursday after causing significant damage to the US Gulf Coast. Isaac is believed to have spawned 3 tornadoes overnight in Mississippi and Alabama. Isaac made landfalls as a Category 1 hurricane 7 years to the day Hurricane Katrina swept ashore in Louisiana and Mississippi. A fire at Venezuela's largest oil refinery flared up again on Tuesday. Firefighters scrambled to put out a blaze that killed at least 40 people and embarrassed President Hugo Chavez. A gas leak caused the explosion and most of those killed were National Guard troops who were providing security. NASA launched Atlas V rocket carrying a pair of satellites designed to study the impact of solar storms on Earth early Thursday. The rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral carrying the radiation belt storm probes. Is the first time 2 spacecraft will orbit in tandem amid the harsh, hazardous radiation belts of Earth. The extra tough satellites are designed to withstand an onslaught of cosmic rays over the next 2 years.
And if you've missed the week's biggest sporting events, here's your chance to catch up. We'll bring you sports action.
Spain's Dani Pedrosa surged past Jorge Lorenzo in the final turn at the Czech MotoGP on Sunday, winning a dramatic finish in Bernal to narrow his compatriots' lead in the Riders' Championship. Pedrosa overtook Lorenzo midway through the race but needed to pass the championship leader at the end after losing his lead in the middle of the last lap. It was the 3rd victory of the season for Pedrosa. Paul Lawrie confirmed that he had returned to his best form ahead of the Ryder Cup in September by winning the Johnny Walker Championship at Gleneagle on Sunday. Having led by a single shot going into the final round, the Scotsman produced 4 birdies over the back 9 holes of the course to overwhelm his rivals. Australian Brett Rumford shot 68 to finish on 12 under 276 and 2nd place. Real Madrid on Monday unveiled their new midfielder Luka Modric from Tottenham Hotspur as the stuttering Spanish champions seek an injection of guile and creativity to get their troubled season back on track. Modric flew into Madrid on Monday and after passing a medical signed a 5-year contract. Real is expected to pay €35 million for Modric plus another $7 million depending on the number of his appearances and the team's performance. England captain Andrew Strauss, who oversaw back-to-back Ashes win over Australia and took England to the top of the Test rankings, announced his retirement from professional cricket on Wednesday. Strauss will be replaced by one-day skipper Alistair Cook. Strauss's decision was the climax of a difficult few weeks for the batsman during which England lost their number 1 Test ranking to South Africa following a 2-0 series defeat to the Proteas.
Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. The 69th edition of the Venice Film Festival got underway on Wednesday evening with a gala ceremony and a screening of The Reluctant Fundamentalist. The Meera Nair film is based on a novel of the same name which traces a young Pakistani man's journey from Wall Street high flyer to suspected Islamist radical targeted by American intelligence. 2 members of Russia's anti-Kremlin punk band Pussy Riot fled the country to avoid prosecution on Sunday. A Moscow court sentenced 3 members of the all-female opposition band to 2 years in prison for staging a punk prayer at a Moscow cathedral in February, calling on the Virgin Mary to rid Russia of Putin. Police said earlier this week they were searching for other members of the band. George Clooney was the star attraction on Monday in Geneva in what is being billed as the Democratic Party's biggest fundraising event abroad aimed at helping President Barack Obama win re-election. The American actor and activist arrived in Geneva's Old Town for a private reception followed by a gala dinner. About $5 lakh could be raised for Obama's campaign coffers as he battles to keep pace with the fundraising of his rival Republican Mitt Romney. Kim Kardashian is everywhere from television, magazines and red carpet events. Now her much-documented life will go a step further as a subject in Blue Water Productions' new series 15 Minutes. Written by New York Times best-selling author Mark Shapiro and illustrated by Noval Hernawan, people can not only watch Kardashian's current activities
They can now also read about her rise to fame and the ongoing realities of her life in a graphic novel format.
That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. I'll be back next week, same time, with more world news. Till then, you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/WPRSTV, and our Twitter handle is @RSTV News for the latest world news. This week, we wrap up with spectacular visuals from the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games in London. Goodbye and thanks for watching.